Hello and welcome to We Never Met, the podcast where I have interesting strangers on every single week. Today we have...
I'm McKenzie Hanson. I'm a stop motion animator and a commercial photographer, and I live here in Chicago.
Yes. And we were talking, you were from Minnesota originally.
I'm originally from Minnesota.
So what brought you to Chicago?
Actually, commercial photography.
Oh, really?
I wanted to move to a place that had more opportunity for working with brands. Okay. So in Minnesota, I worked mainly in wedding and portrait photography, and that was great, but it was kind of soul sucking after a while.
Yeah, weddings are tough, I feel like.
I love them, but I hate them at the same time. I think that it's a great industry to get into as a photographer.
Yeah.
But I think that I was just searching for something that is more fulfilling. So
yeah, because for me, I had a friend back in Milwaukee who did video for weddings, and he was always like, "Hey, do you want to be my second shooter?" I'm like, I do not want to do
no,
weddings.
Thank you.
I just feel like everyone is so on edge.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Working with brides and parents, and
especially when you're doing photography, because it's like if you miss something, you can't be like, redo that actually.
Yeah, and it's hard too, because I had one bride's mom call me one time and it was like, "Hey, I don't have this shot of me walking this person down the aisle." And it's like, "Hey, your daughter hired me as one photographer, and this was included in their package. I usually work with two photographers, and that's how I can capture all of the moments."
It's also like not about you. It's about your daughter.
It's about your daughter. So I was up in front getting the people up at the front, and sorry if I missed a moment and the wedding wasn't organized right. I'm just here.
I'm just here to take pictures of what exists.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have certain parameters that you have to work with, and they're not always as easily flowing. If you like, I've been to weddings that have wedding planners, and I've been to weddings where it's totally bootstrapped, and I'm the one who ends up being the planner, and director of moving things
worse,
through. Yeah. But I'm able to do it. So when I have to step into director Kenzie mode, I just go full force. Yeah. I'm like, all right.
You have to be here. You do this. Yeah.
Exactly.
So are you in Minnesota, a big, like by Minneapolis, or is it from like a smaller?
So I grew up in a small town of Austin, Minnesota, and we're known for Spam, not the internet Spam, but the canned meat.
That's where it's made?
That's where it's made, and that's where Hormel Foods was founded. Okay.
Wow.
And they basically fund the entire town. So
is that far away from everything else? Or is that like in Minnesota, if you're looking at a map, where is it? Like north?
So you have 35 and 90. It's about 20 minutes east of 90 and 35.
Okay.
So it's about 2 hours south of Minneapolis.
Okay. So you're in like
right on the border of Iowa and Minnesota.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, did you get, I guess, bored there when you were growing up? You know? Cuz I feel like when there's not that much stuff to do. I mean, I guess when you're a kid, you have your imagination.
I guess so. When you're a kid, you have your imagination. I was actually heavily involved in theater and music. Okay. So I did theater in the summers and music during the year. And growing up, elementary school and middle school, I was in sports. And then high school, that's what filled my time, was extracurricular activities, was theater and music.
Yeah, because I was going to be like, is that why you decided maybe subconsciously to move to Chicago? Because like you were like, oh, I have to get away from this smaller thing, you know?
It was that. Yeah. And because I could easily move to Minneapolis.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But it was moving closer to opportunity, because I could for sure kill it in the wedding and portrait industry in Minnesota, but that's not really what I wanted to do. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I just knew that there was something more for me, and that there was more potential in a bigger city.
Because if you're like killing it, but you're like not happy, what's the point of that?
What's
really?
The point?
You know, like I'm doing so well in my career, but I'm sad most days because I'm doing it
most days. Yeah, you know? I'm behind a screen sipping on whiskey to get through 2,000 images, and it's all the same preparation, wedding, posed portraits, and reception. Just a different wedding each time. And it's funny because now one of my consistent gigs is editing for other photographers' wedding photos. So it's kind of ironic that I got out of it because of the editing and now I'm back in it because editing pays well.
Yeah. Is that like an interesting thing? Because it's like, are they looking for a certain look when you're editing photos, or do you just do what you do and then give it to them?
So it depends on the photographer. Each photographer has their own style.
That's hard, isn't
it? It's hard, but when you have a trained skill, you know what to look for. So when I look at a photographer's work, I can pull out the colors that they lean towards and their editing style, whether it's warm or a vintage feel, or whether it's bright and airy, or whether they desaturate their blues. And I have a trained skill in that. So with each photographer who sends me their wedding catalogs to edit, they'll send a preset, and then off of their preset, I'll use that for the entire wedding, but just make adjustments to make it all consistent.
Was that a tough thing to do though at the beginning? Like, cause you have your own style, I'm presuming, you know? So was it hard not to be like, oh, if I just did this to this photo, like it would be, you know?
It's still really hard.
Yeah, I bet.
I mean, I'm good at aligning my style to a photographer's style, but when I see what could be better about an image and I can't just make that change, it kind of irks me.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, they like their photos more warm, so I guess that this is going to be this way. But then other times I take creative liberty and I'm like, let's meet in the middle.
Yeah.
And how about I just bump this or even this out a little bit more. Say the skin tones are really orange and yellow, and I just can't deal because it's not natural. I will meet in the middle where it still aligns with their style, but I will adjust to make it look a little bit more natural.
Sure. Because like, so even going back further than all this, why did you decide to get into photography and like video and all that stuff? I saw that in college you were a music major. You just posted that recently.
Yes.
And is that when you made the switch more, or was it even before that you decided?
It was before that. I was always interested in the arts. I think I had a best friend in childhood who got me into music in 3rd grade. And from there, I kind of developed this creative side of me. And because nobody in my family is really creative, I'm the only one who's pursuing a creative career. And so in 8th grade, I was interested in photography because we had to do this career project. Okay. And you pick a career and then you find out all the things, how much this person makes whatever.
What do they do on a daily basis? Stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And I chose photography, and that was just what photographers make. And I thought it was a cool field. Yeah. And then I took a film class in 8th grade that I sucked at, but
I mean, everyone sucks at the beginning.
Right. It's like, okay, cool.
And during, and sometimes while they're doing it.
You have a film camera and you have to learn what manual mode is and how to compose an image and do it correctly. And then when you develop it, you're like, what is this? What is this?
Am I supposed to be in this shot? I think my head's cut off.
Whose feet are these? Oh man. But I wasn't as proactive about pursuing photography then, but it was always an interest. So throughout high school, I was very involved in music and vocal ensembles and theater. And I think that's what inspired what I do today. I mean, not necessarily inspired, but it definitely is a complementary skill set that I have. Yeah. Because I was always surrounded by sets and by storylines and directing and all of these things that creatively inspired me because I got to become this role and go out on stage and perform. Yeah. And in some elements, I wish that I would have continued acting outside of high school and college because there's still elements of me that wants to be some famous actress. Yeah, when I was growing up, I wanted to be an actress on Broadway. Oh, okay. And I really am not sure when I decided that photography was going to be my career choice. Yeah. When I graduated high school, I got a camera first camera was a Nikon D40.
Nice.
And I started taking photos of my friends for their senior photos. And
Okay.
I would love to pull those up because, boy.
Do you still have them like somewhere?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably on a MySpace or old Facebook page.
Oh, the MySpace days. Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
But I'd love to see them. I just remember going to the local nature center and taking pictures of this girl in front of flowers and jumping and
yeah, they're probably great.
next to a bridge.
Yeah.
Like just all the
All the
in a
classic
tree. Who knows?
In a tree where people are normally sitting.
Yeah, you need to stand next to this tree for your senior photos because it makes the most sense.
It means a lot to you. I know this tree. You and this tree go
In
really
this tree, just wow.
There's
you're
a connection.
graduating.
There's a connection.
So much nostalgia with you in this tree.
Yeah. So when did it for you? Was it because you just kind of gradually are like, oh, I like this more, or this is really cool? Is that why you kind of gravitated towards it? Or was it like a conscious choice to like stay in the creative realm and do this specifically?
I think it was a conscious choice. Yeah. I've always had trouble being fulfilled in a 9-to-5.
Yeah.
So it's more so to have the convenience of my own schedule.
Sure.
And freedom to make my own path. Mm-hmm. And whether it's photography or video or acting or music, I always want to be pursuing that. But I'm not sure, if it was...
Yeah, like when did that like come? Like, so when did you decide like this is going to be my full, like what I do full time?
I think in college.
Okay.
I went to a community college, graduated early with a liberal arts degree, and then I transferred to a 4-year school that I think I majored in journalism for the whole semester that I was there.
Okay.
And I was only majoring in journalism because they didn't have a photography degree.
Okay. So it's like, this is what I'll do
stories
instead.
And storytelling, sure.
Right.
But it wasn't really what I should have been doing. And I'm glad that I dropped out and figured out my degree because I did graduate college with a bachelor's degree in business administration.
Okay.
And I did that online, but I'm really glad that I didn't stick it out at a 4-year school.
It's a long time.
Can't imagine the debt I would be in and how...
I'm in that debt, so...
Yeah, it's just... I'm really glad that my life took a turn.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was in college and somebody asked me if I could shoot their wedding and I'm like, sure. Never shot a wedding before, but I think that's what inspired me to say, hey, I can actually make this a business. I could keep getting more wedding clients, portrait clients. I'm good at this and I just need to figure out a way to market myself.
Right. This was still in Minnesota, right?
This is in Minnesota. It was 2011, I think.
Okay.
And I was a sophomore or junior in college. And then I shot my mom's second wedding. And it was a very special time for me, but also kind of nerve-wracking. Like, Mom, what if I mess up on your wedding photos?
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Right. So that's what got me into full-time photography. And then I did have part-time jobs after I dropped out of college, I went back to my hometown.
Okay.
Lived with my parents for a while and I was a paraprofessional at the schools. Okay. So what paraprofessionals do is work with special needs students in the classroom. And so it was another 9-to-5, but that was a fulfilling thing for me because I was helping others and adding value in some way. So that was a really rewarding job. And it wasn't until 2015 when I was working at a family-owned sewing machine and vacuum store.
Wow. Like selling them?
Yes.
Okay. Yep. Did you sell them?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, nice.
I sold very expensive, top quality vacuum cleaners.
To who?
I don't know. Rich people who want clean floors.
Is that what it is? Was it like businesses or residential people?
Both.
Oh, both.
Both. And then sewing machines to elderly ladies, hobbyists, but they would spend $15,000 on an embroidery machine just for fun.
That is fun.
Not a business.
Wow.
So
15,000.
But
these grandmas got a lot of money.
Oh my gosh, like, what do you do?
Yeah.
What do you have $15,000 to spend
on a hobby.
But if you think about it, people buy boats and motorcycles and you can only use them for 3 months out of the year. So whatever.
But at least it's bigger.
Right.
like the size, I don't know.
Right.
When it's a small thing, like even technology and stuff, and I'm like, this is $15,000.
Why?
Are you kidding me?
Why am I
It's
paying $1,200 for a smartphone?
Yeah, it's whatever.
But it was a fun job, but I knew it wasn't going to be forever.
Sure.
But even within the parameters of selling sewing machines and vacuum cleaners, I found my way to add value to that business. So I started taking over their emails and I did email marketing campaigns. And then I started planning these big sewing machine events or sewing events and bringing in national vendors. And I got to sharpen my skills in marketing and their social media because, of course, this sewing machine and vacuum store has to have an Instagram account.
Why wouldn't you?
We have to show the old ladies who aren't on Instagram
what they're missing.
Or we got to bring in the young crew to see what they're missing.
Right.
They need to spend $15,000 too.
Yeah.
But I found my way to be creative within that and develop my marketing skills because I feel like I've always had this knack for marketing with no real training or schooling on marketing.
Yeah.
I mean, I developed a marketing plan and a business plan in college, but I don't have a marketing degree.
Yeah.
So I was able to develop that through those jobs, but I quit my job at the sewing machine store.
Bummer. They missed out.
They missed out. No, I was building up to this point where I'm like, I'm going to go full-time photography. I'm going to build my clientele in weddings and redo my website and send out flyers. And I had this big plan. And in June of 2015, I quit my job to pursue wedding and portrait photography full time.
Okay.
So that's when I was like, this is a career.
Sure.
This is what I want to do.
Sure. So it based on what you're saying, it doesn't sound like you do anything halfway. Like you go for it, which is a good quality, especially when you're doing stuff by yourself.
Right.
Freelancing.
Right.
Because then you're only accountable for everything. If something goes wrong or,
Yeah. So it's really funny because I see all of these other business owners who are like, I had this business that funded my creative business for this long. And until my creative business was self-funding itself, that's when I quit my job. But for me, I'm young and 22 years old, maybe.
Yeah.
And I was set. I didn't have any plan for clientele, but I just quit my job and I just went for it.
Yeah.
I dove head first. So, I mean, I'm not saying that's the best way to do it, but with anything, you do have to take that risk. So.
Right. Because it also gives you no backup plan though. So you really have to go hard, you really have to make this work because there is no other option. I can't go back to selling sewing machines.
In anything I do in my life, it's head first.
Right.
Even in the sewing machine business, I taught myself how to sew and how to embroider. And these old ladies who are watching me, they're like, don't you want to do this first or this first? And I'm like, no, I'm just going to press start and go. Just
see what happens. I started sewing my shirt into it. That's probably what happened to me. Those things go fast.
Oh yeah.
Man, it is
so fast.
It's a hard skill to learn.
Oh, it is. And there were people who were well-seasoned sewers, and they would see me start and they were afraid to press start. And I'm like, no, you just have to go. Just have to, if your whatever thread and fabric gets bunched up, then you figure it out. But you have the basic knowledge and the basic skill set. You just have to trust yourself and figure out the intricacies of that later.
Right. You got to start somewhere. You got to just start trying. So with your business, when you moved to Chicago and decided to do that, was it, did you pick up more, business clients rather than actual people? Is that why you because there's more diversity here for that kind of stuff?
When I moved to Chicago, I was working with a lot of other photographers assisting, and that's how I got a lot of my work and kind of got into the brand, because I also had no plan moving to Chicago, and I was I think 3 months pregnant or 6 months pregnant
That's
when I moved
bold
here.
Move for sure.
Very bold. But I had, the funny part about it was I had more work in Chicago than I did in Minnesota through working with other photographers, connecting to people on Instagram, and just offering to second shoot weddings, to assist on video projects, basically putting myself in this learning mode of not being afraid to be less than or
just to say yes to stuff and not be afraid to fail, essentially.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Just go for it.
Yep. So that's exactly what I did. And I had more work in Chicago than I did in Minnesota. And I was spending so much time. I was flying to Chicago about 2 times a month.
Oh, wow.
And to different places around the US with other photographers. And it was mainly to Chicago too, though. I would second shoot weddings and then it was just random here and there projects that I would be able to assist on. And then that's also how I built up my clientele, because if one photographer can't do something,
there you are.
There I am. It's by association, because you have this list of photographers or artists that you can pull from when you can't do a certain gig.
Sure.
And it's important to get on somebody's
somebody's list.
Somebody's list of like 5 photographers that they would reach out to when they can't do something. And so that's how I started to get my clientele, because then the clientele comes back to you.
Right. And it's, you talked about, being pregnant and moving here. How did having a kid change all this? Because I feel like a kid just rocks your world. You know what I mean? Like in every avenue. So like creatively, how did that change like how you thought about things? So I feel like, and this is again without having kids yet, all of my opinions on it, but like you get to see the world again as a young kid, Yeah. And like see like just sort of, I guess, because you wrote a Medium article about this too, about how we're very like negative towards our creativity and like always judging ourselves, but a kid's not like that. At least most of them are, until a certain age when the world jades them into a certain way.
Until the world jades them is exactly right.
So how did that change?
I think that my priorities changed a little bit, just a little bit.
Sure.
When I had a kid, because for one, I included her in a lot of the things I did. I would wrap her up and take her to shoots and take her to events. And I really believe that fully immersing your kid into the real world early on is important for them to learn quickly and be adaptable and develop. And so, but the first year that I was in Chicago and pregnant and having a kid, it was a struggle. It was a big struggle because it was winter, and winter for freelancers is really hard. It's a lot of freelancers actually save up money to make it through winter. And I had 0 savings.
Right, because you're fresh here. Yeah.
So I did a lot of editing gigs for other photographers, editing video interviews and doing assisting gigs again. But the view on photography, I can't say that it's had too much of an impact, because of course she has no preference, or well, she does now. She's 3. She has a lot of opinions now.
Strict preferences.
Right. But when they're a kid, it's not like they're looking at your art and being like, oh, this is great, or let's do this. But it's been fun teaching her some of the things that I do as she gets older. She likes setting up stands with me and pressing the button and seeing the flash go.
Yeah.
And so I like including her and teaching her how to do things without, of course, letting her have full reign over my camera and tripod.
Right.
She has knocked things over before, and it's like super scary.
Yeah.
But as far as that, it's still developing as far as like how I see her getting into the creative world. And I see her getting into music a lot too. She loves singing and dancing.
Oh, yeah.
But she's going to be my little photo assistant one day.
Yeah, because are you a big a parent who does a lot of like video of their kids and like you have a bunch of it? Because my parents, and we still now look back on VHS tapes of like us just doing like, because there's certain, there's types of parents. There's parents that like filmed on special occasions, right? Only Christmas, birthdays, whatever. My parents film like all the time, just random stuff. And it's fun to look back on that stuff.
I do a lot of filming on my phone, and I think it's funny because for a photographer and a filmmaker, I don't capture, in my mind, I don't capture enough of my own kid and my own life, or I don't schedule the sessions that I feel like I should.
Yeah.
And I just think it's funny because it's quite a funny, ironic thing for somebody who documents other people's stories to not like document my own.
Right.
And there are times where I'll bring my camera out and do a day of documenting Harper and just do something fun. And it's really special to me to be able to put those things together. Her first week of life, I did a lot of video of her, and then I put it together for family. And
yeah, that's great.
You know,
because in 10 years, you're going to want to look back on that, you know?